Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also on the BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, County, Sheriff, State, Tennessee. Today is Sunday afternoon, July the 27th, 2025. Time 3:50 p.m. First thing, thank you, my family, my support for you, continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area. I can continue to further my education. And I'm pursuing my associate degree in studying being administrative contract marketing. Now, in the future, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna earn my associate degree as well as other degrees. Now, I'm gonna start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also on our BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, Sheriff, State, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, July the 27th, 2025. Time is 3:51 p.m. First, I thank my family, my support for continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area. I'll continue to further my education. But I'm pursuing my associate degree studying being administrative contract marketing. See, I took a break from going to school, but in the future, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna earn my associate degree as well as other degrees. Now, well, let me click right here. Now, gonna continue to talk about prehistoric religion. And when you say prehistoric religion, when you say prehistoric religion, that's with traditional / ancient African religion. Now, there are books pertaining to the subject of prehistoric religion. Books about archaeology and books about anthropology. And of course, there are books about the earth sciences. That's pertaining to prehistoric religion, pertaining to traditional / ancient African religion. All right. Because when we talk about the earth sciences is going to deal with the earth as well as the universe. So like we're saying, we're talking about prehistoric religion. Is the religious practice of prehistoric cultures. Prehistory, the period before written records, makes up the bulk of human experience. Make sure we emphasize human experience. Over 99% of human experience occurred during the Paleolithic period alone. Prehistoric cultures span the globe. So that means that humans reproduced and was not isolated in one particular area of the earth. But prehistoric cultures spanned the globe and existed for over 2.5 million years. Their religious practices were many and varied, and the study of them is difficult due to the lack of written records describing the details of their faith. Make sure you pay attention to the things that the PhD is presenting. There are a lot of things being said that cannot be overlooked. Before you even get to religion, prehistory. The period before written records. And we're dealing with a lot of time. Now the scientific community, they use their technology in updating us as humans as well as any and everything else. And so 99% of human experience occurred during the Paleolithic period. Let me click over there to Paleolithic. The Paleolithic, also called the Old Stone Age, pay attention, is a period in human prehistory. Is a period in human prehistory that is distinguished by the original development of stone tools, and which represents almost the entire period of human prehistoric technology. It extends from the earliest known use of stone tools by hominins 3.3 million years ago to the end of the Pleistocene. Now let me click on homonyms. The homonyms form a taxonomic tribe of the subfamily Homininae. And so, when you say the Homininae, that is a subfamily of the family of Hominidae. And this subfamily includes two tribes, Hominini and Gorillini. Both extant species as well as extinct species. So when we look at that taxonomic classification of the superfamily, Hominoideae, and so when we get out all the way down, now we know we got the gibbons over there, the Hylobatidae, and those are gibbons. But you got behind it, now in this subfamily on the other side of the gibbons, you got the Hominidae. And from the Hominidae, Homininae, and on the other side, the Punginae. And Pungo is the orangutan. And so, when we talk about the Homininae, from the Homininae, you get the Gorillinae split and the Hominini split. And that's the gorilla, the Gorillini, that's the gorilla. And on the other side, you have the Hominini, where that's where we come from. But it's two splits. You got Pan, and the Pan is the chimpanzee and the bonobos. And on the other side is us, Homo. That's where we are Homo nini. So when you say hominins, I know this thought gonna come in your mind. You're gonna be like, okay, yes, hominins use stone tools. That's what the PhD told you. We never see. Okay, and so that's what they was trying to. That's what they was trying to show you when they were talking about Australopithecina and Australopithecus. Before you became a human, you was a hominini. Then it branched off from the gorillini, and then you got the panine, which is the chimpanzees, and the bonobos included. But when you talk about the hominine, when you come to Australopithecus, that's what the PhD was telling you about. The Ardipithecus Pianthropus. And then you had the Australopithecus Paranthropus and Australopithecus robustus. But he wasn't human yet. So we have to make sure we don't get confused. See, this is the reason why you have to make sure you pay attention to what the PhD is telling you about the bones that they found and who is human and who is not human. That's what they're trying to tell you. Everything that they find is not human. It's like pre-human. But where it came from the same, just like when we were talking about the hominine, and then you get to the hominini, where you branched off with the gorillini, and from the gorillini you had the other split to the hominini, and then from the hominini you had this split where you had a punine, that's the chimpanzees and the bonobo. And then on the other side, this is where we split. When you had a panine, you had the hominine. That's what they were talking about, the Australopithecina. See, when the scientists found these bones, these like the pre-humans. They lived on this earth. They are generally in a species in a related genera, Australopithecus and Paranthropus. Then you got Kenyanthropus or Ardipithecus and Prianthropus. They are the extinct close relatives of modern humans, and together with the extinct genus Homo, comprise the human clade. There is no general agreement to whether Australopithecines are closest relatives of modern humans, as it has been argued that they are more closely related to extinct African apes, members of the human clade, the hominid, after the split from the chimpanzees, are called homininae. Now it said, while none of the groups normally directly assigned to this group survive, the Australopithecines do not appear to be literally extinct in the sense of having no living descendants, as the genera Kenyanthropus, Paranthropus, and Homo probably emerged as sisters of a late Australopithecus species such as Australopithecus africanus and Australopithecus sediba. Now they lived on this earth. They actually lived. However, no. Now, the Australopithecines occurred in the late Miocene, subepic, and were bipedal. They were bipedal, and they were dentally similar to humans. Pay attention. See, we getting where we want to be. So you got to pay attention. What the PhD telling you about what they find. They were dentally similar to humans. So if I'm similar, you're not classifying me as being human, but you're saying that I'm similar to humans. But with a brain size not much larger than that of modern non-human apes, with lesser encephalization than in the genus Homo. So their brain was small. Humans, genus Homo, may have descended from Australopithecine ancestors and the genera Ardipithecus, Auroran or Sahelanthropus, and Greco-Pithecus are the possible ancestor of the Australopithecines. So they talking about, when we talk about the Australopithecines, their ancestors. That's who they referring to. Not So that's telling you, before you even got to Homo, you had some similar beings on this who descended from the same descendants of the gorilla and the orangutan and the gibbons. On that note, that's where we came from. We all came from, we have the same lineage. So, okay, classification. Right. Okay. So we on this was it Australopithecine. The hominin timeline been moved. Now it's on, it's on here, but on the tablet, it's not on the tablet. But the hominin timeline. So let me see. It said they are extinct close relatives of modern humans, and together with the extinct genus Homo, comprise the human clade. Now, what a clade is, this is what the PhD is telling you. They didn't say that what they found was human, but they fall up under this clade. Because see, when you keep saying Homo, talking about humans, and then when you talk about this Australopithecines and Australopiths or homininians, they are the extinct close relatives of modern humans, and together with the extinct genus Homo, comprise the human clade. Now, what's clade? This is what it means. In biology, a clade, also known as a monophyletic group or natural group, is a group of organisms that is composed of a common ancestor and all of its descendants. Clades are the fundamental unit of cladistics, a modern approach to taxonomy adopted by most biological fields. So we're talking about an organism who has what? Common ancestor. So we're talking about the ancestor. So the Australopithecines, Australopiths or homininians, they are extinct close relatives of modern humans, and together with the extinct genus Homo. There is no general agreement to whether Australopithecines are close relatives of modern humans, as it has been argued that they are more closely related to extinct African apes. Members of the human clade, the hominini, after the split from the chimpanzees, are called homininae. It said, while none of the groups normally directly assigned to this group survived, the Australopithecines do not appear to be literally extinct in the sense of having no living descendants. As the general Kenyanthropus or Paranthropus and Homo probably merged as sisters of the late Australopithecus species known as Australopithecus africanus and Australopithecus sediba. Now, the Australopithecines occurred in the late Miocene. And they were bipedal and they were generally similar to human, but with a brain size not much larger than that of modern non-human apes, with lesser encephalization than in the genus Homo. Humans, genus Homo, may have descended from Australopithecine ancestors, and the general Ardipithecus, Auroran, and Sahelanthropus and Greco-Pithecus are the possible ancestors of the Australopithecines. All right. Now they give us some physical characteristics of this Australopithecines. Saying most cranial remains of Australopithecines show they were adapted to bipedal locomotion, but did not walk identically to humans. They had a forearm to upper arm ratio similar to golden ratio, greater than other hominins. They exhibited greater sexual dimorphism. Their members are homo or pan, but less so than gorilla or pongo. It's thought they average heights of 12, 1.2, 1.7, 3.9 to 4.9 feet. So they weren't that tall. And weigh between 30 and 55 kilograms. The brain size may have been 350 cc to 600 cc. The post canines, the teeth behind the canines, were relatively large and had more enamel compared to contemporary apes and humans. Whereas the inside of the canine were relatively small, and there was little difference between the males and female canine compared to modern apes. So I mean, you know, it's something you need to pay attention to when you're talking about them Australopithecines, because they want that big. So you gotta picture in your mind, you gotta have this idea of saying, oh, okay, he about this big then. Remember, because we talking about it, and when they came on in the the Australopithecines occurred in the late Miocene. Now let's get to the relation to Homo. Most scientists maintain that the genus Homo emerged in Africa within the Australopithecines around 2 million years ago. However, there is no consensus on within which species. Determining which species of Australopithecine, if any, is ancestral to the genus Homo is a question that is a top priority for many paleoanthropologists, but one that will likely elude any conclusive answer for years to come. Nearly every possible species has been suggested as a likely candidate, but none are overwhelmingly convincing. Presently, it appears that A. garhi has the potential to occupy this coveted place in paleoanthropology, but the lack of fossil evidence is a serious problem. Another problem presents itself in the fact that it has been very difficult to assess which hominid, now hominin, represents the first member of the genus Homo. Without knowing this, it is not possible to determine which species of Australopithecine may have been ancestral to Homo. All right. Now, and then they go on to talk about this Asian Australopithecine. And then a minority view among paleoanthropologists is that Australopithecines moved outside Africa. Now you got people that's for this, then you got people that argue against that. It's a apparent theory. In this way, we arrive at the conclusion that the recognition of Australopithecines in Asia was not confused, but could help to clarify the early evolution of hominins on that continent. This concept would explain the scantly remains from Java and China as relic of an Asian offshot of an early radiation of Australopithecus. which was followed much later by an African immigration of Homo erectus, and finally became extinct after a period of coexistence. In 1957, an early Pleistocene Chinese fossil tooth of unknown provenance was described as resembling Paranthropus robustus. 3 fossilized molars from Jiangxi, China, were later identified as belonging to an Australopithecus species. However, further examination questioned this interpretation. In Zhang in 1984 argued that Jiangxi teeth had unidentified tooth belonged to Homo erectus. Then in 2010 also dispute the Jiangxi Anthropocene link and argued that the Jiangxi molars fall within the range of Homo erectus. And so, no marked difference in dental crown shape is shown between the Jiangxi hominin and other Chinese Homo erectus. And there is also no evidence in support of the Jiangxi hominin's closeness to Australopithecus. However, 1999 notes that in China, persistent claims of Australopithecine or Australopithecine-like remains continue. So we know that these Australopithecine and like I said, they told the Australopithecines occurred in the late Miocene. Now let's not forget. Now we know that, according being mammals, you have primates. Now all this is coming the old world monkeys, and then you get to the new world monkeys, and so all this happened. When it comes to the Australopithecines, it occurred in the late Miocene. So when it comes to the old world monkeys, they don't have anything to do with none of this. You get to the new world monkeys, that's when we start talking about all this. Now, when we talk about the Miocene, okay, the Miocene, and then you get to the Pliocene. Now, when you look at that hominin timeline, you start to see that it took some time for it to actually get to the Pleistocene, but during the Pliocene, this is when you get to the hominini. But even before that, like they told you, when you get to the Miocene, in the late Miocene, Auroran is an extinct genus of primate within homininae from the Miocene. And then you get Auroran. Now the first Auroran was a Toganesis. Then you got Auroran Pregenus. Then you get the early sign of Ardipithecus. This is in the Miocene. Then when you get to hominini, we're in the Pliocene. And then you get the earliest sign of Australopithecus. Australopithecus ramidus. Then you get Ardipithecus ramidus. Yeah, and then Ardipithecus. Is considered to be an ancestor of humans after they diverged from the chimpanzee. And then you get the Australopithecus anamensis. Then you get the Australopithecus afarensis. And then you get, and see, this is what we in the Pliocene. And that's what the Paleolithic. Australopithecus africanus. Then you get the Australopithecus. Then you get the earliest sign of Homo. Australopithecus garhi. And see, this is how, and this is the reason why you don't hear Homo. But look, when you start hearing Homo, you start hearing Homo rudolfensis. Is an extinct species of archaic human from the early Pleistocene of East Africa, about 2 million years ago. And he coexisted with several other hominids. See, this is really why you have to pay attention to what the PhD telling you. Homo rudolfensis. So you get the earliest sign of Homo, Australopithecus garhi. Then you get Homo rudolfensis. He homo. Homo rudolfensis. He homo. He human. See, Australopithecus, he Australopithecus. He not human. He not homo. He hadn't evolved. He one of the ancestors. Australopithecus guy is like one of the close relatives, you know, like close ancestors. He might be the great grandfather. He might not be the might not be the granddad. He might be the great granddad. And in between Australopithecus garhi and Homo rudolfensis, see, let me click over here. Australopithecus garhi. Now, according to what the scientists say, Australopithecus garhi is a species of Australopithecus seen from the Bure Formation in the far region of Ethiopia 2.5 million years ago. During the early Pleistocene, the first remains were described in 1999 based on several skeletal elements uncovered in the 3 years preceding. Australopithecus garhi was originally considered to have been a direct ancestor to Homo in the human line, but is now thought to have been an offshot, like other Australopithecines. Australopithecus garhi had a brain volume of 450 cc, 27 cubic inches, a jaw which guffed out, prognatism, relatively large molars and premolars, adaptation for both walking on 2 legs, bipedalism, and grasping while climbing. Arboreality, and it is possible that, though unclear if males were larger than females, exhibited sexual dimorphism. One individual presumed female based on size may have been 140 centimeters, 4 feet 7 inches tall. Australopithecus garhi is the first pre-Homo hominin postulated to have manufactured tools, using them in butchering, and may be counted among growing body evidence for pre-Homo stone tool industry. The ability to manufacture tools was previously believed to have separated Homo from predecessors. Australopithecus garhi possibly produced the Odoan industry, which was previously considered to have been invented by later Homo habilis, though this may have instead been produced by contemporary Homo. Okay, let me see here. All right, so Australopithecus guard. So we talking late Pliocene and early Pleistocene. Then you get the Homo. So we know that there's a between. In between Australopithecus garhi and Homo rudolfensis. There's an in between. And when you're talking about this in between, then you're talking about the ancestors. That's what they're trying to say. They can't really just say a direct ancestor, but they saying they like a species. Australopithecus garhi, like he's a species. You know, that in that home on that taxonomic classification. And then when you get to Homo rudolfensis, you get to Homo habilis. And let's not forget that we're talking about archaic humans. Archaic humans. According to the PhD, these are the archaic humans. When you say Homo rudolfensis, that's what they already classify him as being an archaic human. Then when you get to Homo habilis, he's an archaic human. And before I end today's video, we're going to touch on this early expansions of hominids out of Africa. Now, several expansions of populations. Pay attention to this. I want you to listen to who they're talking about. Several expansions of populations of archaic humans. Genus Homo out of Africa and throughout Eurasia took place in the course of the lower Paleolithic. And see, this is the reason why when we talk about cognition, when you keep talking about this archaic human, And it says several expansions of populations of archaic humans, genus Homo, out of Africa and throughout Eurasia, took place in the course of the lower Paleolithic and into the beginning middle Paleolithic, between about 2.1 million and 0.2 million years ago. These expansions are collectively known as Outer Africa. In contrast to the expansion of anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, into Eurasia, which may have begun shortly after 0.2 million years ago, known in this context as Outer Africa. The earliest presence of Homo, or indeed any hominin outside of Africa, dates to close to 2 million years ago. 2018 study identified hominin presence in Shangqing, central China, as early as 2.12 Maya, based on magnetostratigraphic data of the lowest layer containing stone artifacts. The oldest known human skeletal remains outside of Africa are from the Dmanisi, Georgia, and are dated to 1.8 million. These remains are classified as Homo erectus georgicus. And saying that it wasn't just one fossil, they saying that the Dmanisi hominins, or Dmanisi people, or Dmanisi man, were a population of early Pleistocene hominins whose tools have been recovered at Dmanisi, Georgia. The fossils and stone tools recovered at Dmanisi range in age from 1.85 to 1.77 million years ago old. They say, let me see, they really range it. It's saying making the Dmanisi hominins the earliest well-dated hominin fossils in Eurasia and the best preserved fossils of early Homo from a single site so early in time, though earlier fossils and artifacts have been found in Asia. Though their precise classification is controversial and disputed, the Dmanisi fossils are highly significant within research on early hominin migrations out of Africa. The Dmanisi hominins are known from over 100 postcranial fossils and 5 famous well-preserved skulls referred to as Dmanisi skulls. Let me see. Okay. And homosexual. Okay. So I'm gonna click back over. Oh, they talking about this. They found this skull, so I was looking at. So out of Africa, but we see that when we talk about the Homo. We're not talking about Australopithecus. We're talking about Homo coming out of Africa. Homo. It's saying later waves of expansion are proposed around 1.4 million. Early Acheulean industry associated with Homo antecessor. That's another archaic human. Homo antecessor and associated with, and then Homo heidelbergensis, another archaic human. Now I know then your brain, when you start talking about going to Africa, and then you talking about this number of people, your common sense telling you that it was a like large number of people of these archaic humans who were living in sub-Saharan, living on the continent of Africa. And just disperse. If you look at when you go to early expansions of hominins out of Africa, you can actually see the direction that they went. And then let me see. But like I said, coming out of Africa, that's the theory coming out of Africa. And they base a lot of these theories based on just like that skulls they found it in Demonese, Georgia. A lot of this information is theories, and they don't find no more skulls anywhere, or bones as evidence of, that's what this theory coming out of Africa is really based on. Not saying it's true, not saying it's false, but just based on the evidence, these bones that they find, and a lot of the bones lead back to Africa. And see, then our minds be telling us, okay, we see that these archaic humans, they were not anatomically modern humans, but they were archaic. So their method of communication, understand? Their method of communication. That's the reason why when we talk about this prehistoric religion, the archaic human, it wasn't like in the lower Paleolithic. That's the reason why the archaeologists take, the PhD take now, because the cognition. Archaic humans, he didn't have that cognition, but he made tools, and he, left Africa. But the cognition for religion, he didn't have it. And when you use that word cognition, it likely first emerged in Homo sapiens sapiens or anatomically modern humans. So this is what Homo sapiens sapiens or anatomic modern humans learned. You had these archaic humans did things on the continent of Africa, then they possibly dispersed. Well, then that's who taught Homo sapiens sapiens. That's who taught anatomically modern humans. They went anatomical, ain't no way in the world Homo sapiens sapiens or anatomically modern humans would have survived without archaic humans teaching them first. All right, what time is it? I'm going to go ahead and end today's video. We're going to come back and we're going to get back on this. Before I end today's video, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings God provides us all with. And continue to refer to Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, and as well as any other information that you have at the library, of course. And then you have books on prehistoric religion, dealing with archaeology and anthropology. You got books on earth sciences. Read those books in your spare. Read them books. But that's the thing that we want to make sure we don't overlook. We're dealing with prehistoric religion, prehistory. We know that there's a difference between the scientific classification of Australopithecine, and then from the Australopithecine, you get to archaic humans. And then from the archaic humans, you come into your Homo sapiens sapiens or anatomical modern human. And when we come to, what did you learn and what did you teach? See, these are things that, in our mind, you don't have to sit there and ask questions when you see that the PhD is telling you, just like archaic humans, before you even get to Homo sapiens sapiens, and I'm talking about archaic humans were in contact with each other. So they had to teach and learn. And then even from the Australopithecines, the archaic humans had to have an ancestor who taught them, and they had to learn. They had to learn. They weren't that far away, but the archaic human had to have some guide for all the archaic humans to be able to go on their own. They most certainly couldn't use each other for guidance. They had to have the one that was before them for guidance. That's the reason why, the theory when you put all these archaic humans in a certain location, they can learn. And then you disperse. So who was there in Africa? It was the Australopithecines. They was there in Africa, so they had to learn a lot of these things about foraging to survive. The Australopithecines, before the archaic humans, that was his guide. So then you get the archaic humans. Archaic human, before he left, he had to do what? He had to learn. He had to learn from his ancestors. Because it's always going to have to, your common sense going to tell you that was a close relative. Before you get to the archaic human, the Australopithecine, and then when you get to this evolving, he had to learn. And that's who taught him? His ancestors. He had a mother and a father, and then his grandmother and grandfather. They was the earlier species before he evolved. Then when you evolve, that earlier species hadn't gone nowhere, not like that. So he had to learn. So most likely this out of Africa, the archaic human, before the archaic human could go anywhere, he had to learn. Then the evolutionary process and then, the archaic humans were there. But before he could depend on another archaic human, he has the Australopithecus, the Australopithecines. Because even for him to move around on the continent of Africa, he didn't know his way around. He didn't know the do's and don'ts. But then archaic human began to be the archaic human. And then the archaic human began to see the archaic human. So he began to learn from each other and to teach each other. Because by this time, it took some time for Australopithecus to be, and then you see the archaic human. Because the archaic human began to reproduce. And so when the archaic human reproduced, he began to teach his offspring, and then his offspring began to migrate. See, we hadn't gotten to the Homo sapiens sapiens or the anatomical modern human. But then when you get to the Homo sapiens sapiens and the anatomical modern human, the archaic human was still there. So that's what Homo sapiens sapiens and anatomical modern humans, they had to learn from the archaic humans. It's not like the archaic human went extinct first, then. No, the archaic human was here. The archaic humans were here. And while the archaic humans were here, the Homo sapiens sapiens or anatomic modern humans came into existence. When they came into existence, they had to learn. Despite, when we put emphasis on cognition, archaic human lived on this earth. Alright, let me get ready to end today's video. Again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also known by BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, State, state of Tennessee. Thank all my family, my support for you, continue to support. And I'm going to come back on my next video. And we're going to continue to pray about the wars that are being fought, about, the natural disasters, and we just going to continue to pray. We're going to continue to pray. And we're going to stay on this prehistoric religion, as well as traditional / ancient African religion. We're going to be on this indefinitely. And we're going to also refer back to information that we've gone over, going to refer back to it. And so, you take care of yourself. I wish each and every one of you the very best.